In an industry stuffed with marketing bullshit, empty promises, and shiny suited liars, one woman's had enough. She knows what it's like to have the wrong clients, no money, and no time for fun. But she also knows how to fix it. And on the Business for Superheroes show, she promises to tell the down and dirty truth about business, sales, and running away with the circus. Here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello, welcome to Business for Superheroes. I'm Vicky Fraser, and this is my husband, Joe.
That's not quite what I meant when I said, would you like to do the introduction? But thank you, Joe. Yeah, I'm a bit thrown now. We're drinking. Welcome to the podcast. We are drinking gin and tonic.
We are drinking.
Cheers. We are drinking Brockman's gin, which was given to me ages ago by Todd and Joe.
Hi, Todd. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Todd and Joe. And it's actually very delicious.
Of spaghetti.
I had a very full glass and it was a bit slurpy, sorry.
Spaghetti Agency.
Spaghetti Agency, yes. So yeah, we're back with the podcast this week. Joe's back this week.
Hello.
Hello. Had Kyle on last week talking about techno wizardry.
Hi, Kyle.
But I just wanted to say thank you for all of the responses to the podcast we did on burnout, depression and anxiety. Because I had lots of really lovely emails, lots of people saying, oh, thank you so much for doing that podcast. And, you know, I felt really alone and all the rest of it. So if we helped just one person with that, then it was well worth it.
It was. A lot of responses. We like response. That was good.
Yeah. And thank you for all the well wishes as well. I am getting much better. I'm feeling much more like myself. Being hopefully a bit less trying for Joe to live with.
Well, you're always quite trying, but...
That's true. So yeah, this week we are talking about money.
We like the money.
Filthy lucre. And specifically how awful it can be asking for money until you're comfortable doing so. Because I've had a few of my superheroes and coaching clients talk to me about money and quoting and all of that kind of thing recently. So I thought, let's do a podcast on it.
Okay.
But before we start, there's a couple of things that I want to say. I don't roll around in money like Scrooge McDuck. Partly because money is really dirty, and partly because I don't have that many notes to roll around in.
He actually had a room full of gold coins, I think you'll find.
Well, they're dirty as well.
He used to swim around in it.
He did, that's true. So I don't do that. I have actually just decided, you know, if you were listening to the podcast a couple of weeks ago, I have just decided to decrease my income because I need more time to do what I love and to grow my business. So... But before I decided that, I made enough money to enable that choice. And that is the key thing. Money gives us choices. It's not, and shouldn't be, I don't think, the be-all and end-all in itself, because it doesn't... Money in and of itself is a tool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there probably are people who have money as the goal. There probably are.
Are you thinking of the Orange is the New Black episode we watched the other day with the bank robber? But even for that, the money wasn't the goal, it was the rush.
That's the excitement.
It was the rush, yeah. So, I don't know, I think, yeah, some people probably do have money as a goal, but I think that is a slippery slope to never really being fulfilled because... Anyway, that's a totally different podcast.
Okay, sorry.
So that was kind of my first disclaimer. And the second thing I wanted to say is this podcast also is not about the massive gap that exists between rich and poor and the problems with poverty. That is a bigger problem that is outside of the scope of this podcast episode to solve.
Solving poverty, not in the scope of this podcast. Check.
But having said that, you know, we can help you make more money and raise your own status in the local community and enrich your local economy, which ultimately helps to lift everybody out of poverty. And that kind of leads really, really nicely into one of the root problems that I think business owners have with money, is that our attitude to money is really fucked up. And I say kind of our attitude and we in a kind of...
Who's us in this statement?
People like us, I guess. You know, sort of middle class-ish, you know, people who are working hard and who have been, you know, maybe brought up by working class parents, maybe by, you know, lower middle class parents, and also in a society that has us believe that for us to have more, someone else must have less.
Right.
Does that make sense? And you only have to look at social media and, you know, people's attitudes on social media and, you know, people that I'm friends with on social media as well. And the papers and comments, and you only have to look at that to see this pervasive attitude that, you know, rich people are rich at the expense of the rest of us. There's that bitterness that comes across, not with everybody, certainly, but...
I think there's quite a bit of... Yeah, I think there's jealousy and bitterness. But
it's not aspirational.
I've never really made the connection between someone being wealthy meaning other people are being poor, and that's the problem.
Well, yeah, but you have not had... And I haven't either, because I think you and I have been lucky in that our parents have had a slightly different attitude towards money, perhaps. And I'm not knocking anyone's upbringing here or anything like that. It's just like the society that you have been brought up in. Having said that, you know, even if that's not a problem, even if you haven't been surrounded by the belief that, you know, for one person to have more, somebody else must have less, there's still this kind of... There's just damaging and limiting beliefs that stop people from doing as well as they could perhaps do. Because, you know, okay, I've got a story for you. So I can't remember my story now. So one of my clients spoke to a woman at an event, and she was like listening to the speakers. So she was at this event to learn how to become more successful. Mm-hmm. And in conversation with my client, she'd said something along the lines of, well, you know, they're different. They're just different from us, aren't they? These uber successful people. And his reaction to that was, well, you know, are you here because you believe that you can do better, or do you believe that they are in some way different inherently from you? Because those are two opposing beliefs. Does that make sense?
Right.
And a lot of people hold those beliefs, and it's like they might not ever articulate them.
Rich people are just different.
Yeah, that they are just somehow different. I'm not talking about being born into wealth, because even those who are born into wealth are fundamentally no different from the rest of us. You know, they all go for a poo and they all put their socks on one at a time. So yeah, that's the kind of... I think this is one of the root problems that business owners have, is this attitude to money.
That they don't deserve it, or they shouldn't have it, or they're not the sort of people who are going to be wealthy.
Yes. And I think it's really pervasive, particularly among people who genuinely want to do good in the world and who want to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. Somehow feel that it's not okay to ask for money for doing what you do.
Right.
And that there is something different about rich people. And, you know, the only difference really between rich people and the rest of us is that rich people never think, I couldn't possibly do X, Y, Z. They don't think that. They might have done once, but they certainly don't anymore. They kind of assume everything will work out and they have a go anyway.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think it does. I'm still intrigued by the attitudes to money and the sort of limiting beliefs that people have. Because I think there are limiting beliefs, but I don't understand them. I don't really get why.
What don't you understand?
Well,
silence is not good on a podcast.
Yeah, it's not good, is it? I don't know what causes people to feel they don't deserve to earn money, or don't deserve to have more money, or don't deserve to be well off.
Okay, so I can give you an example actually.
Are people feeling that they're not allowed to move beyond their class, and that class defines money, or money defines class, or something? I don't know. I
think so, yeah. And I don't think you ought to be thinking about this in terms of conscious beliefs, because most of this I don't think is conscious. It's not a conscious thought that people have. I don't deserve to have this, that, and the other. That's not it. It's the core root of who people believe they are and what they believe they're capable of.
Okay. That's
one problem. But the other problem, the not deserving thing, I can actually give you an example of that, because one of my a guy who used to be a superhero, had a hammock company. Mm-hmm. Really nice hammocks. I believe he's moving back to this part of the world again. He was in Australia. Really nice hammocks. And he ended up doing some work with I think it was a charity who worked with disabled children. Mm-hmm. With severe, I can't remember if it was physical and mental disabilities, but basically it was like a sensory thing. Mm-hmm. And so he ended up kind of, doing some work, and he thought, oh, okay, so maybe this is a market. And then he started second guessing himself, because he was like, I feel really icky about marketing to people with disabilities, or, to parents of kids with disabilities, because it feels like making money off the back of their disability. And my reaction to that was, well, I understand. I totally understand where you're coming from, because you want to do something good, but you selling a product has nothing to do with this, with the child's misfortune. It's not profiting from people's misfortune. What you're actually, it's like a shift in mindset to thinking, I'm going to sell them this stuff and make money, to actually I'm providing a service that's really going to enrich their lives.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with paying for that. And most parents would not for a second think that that was an awful thing to do. It's like, oh my God, there's this amazing product that's going to help my child who, needs help. And I am quite happy to pay for that. It's not gouging at all. Gouging would be charging £1 bazillion for
Well, that's it. I mean, I suppose if he's looking at his accounts and thinking, well, I'm making 11,000% on each thing I sell to these people, then maybe he could do with solving his conscience a little bit and sorting out his pricing structure.
But even then, I have no problem with somebody making 11,000% profit. But if what he wanted to do was specifically do some work with these disabled people, then there are other things that you can do. It's like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to work with this charity in such a way that I can discount my products and services without having to discount it. There are ways to do it. And anyway, we're kind of slightly getting off topic here. But that was a really good example. There's
making money is not a bad thing.
Making money is not a bad thing. It really isn't. And I think that we have been, in this country, a lot of people have been in this culture have been conditioned to think that making money is a bad thing, and that people who want to make money are bad people and they're greedy. And it's like, well, that's not true. Money is just a tool. You don't know what rich people want to do with their money. And by the way, a lot of rich people do a lot of good with their money. A lot of good. So yeah, that's the first root problem, I think. And also, part of that is believing there's not enough wealth to go around, that somehow it's finite. There's a finite amount of wealth in the world. That's not true. There's not a fixed amount of wealth in the world. And if you want to see poverty, by the way, eradicated, and work to redistribute it yourself, because the only way that anything is going to change is for people like us, people like you and me, to say, okay, well, I'm gonna take my share, because you have to take it. You have to go out and you have to earn it and you have to take it. And then, okay, so how can I lift other people up?
You can give them jobs, you can give them training, you can
give
them a free hammock, you can...
And if you are not profitable enough, there is no way you can do that.
Yeah.
There is no way. So that's kind of the first thing that I wanted to kind of get out there. That's the first half of the podcast. And the second half of the podcast, I wanted to devote to the other root problem, I think, which is that belief that we're not the type of person who can make that much money. We don't have that confidence in ourselves. And so I want to ask listeners, this is not so much the case for you because you don't run your own business, but I would like to ask you, dear listener, how do you feel about asking your clients for money? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel a little bit sick? Does it make you feel anxious? If you're putting your prices up, especially, does it make you feel icky and uncomfortable? I suspect for most people, the answer is going to be either yes, it does, or I know that because it used to.
Yeah.
And I totally understand that. It does that for everybody at first. Even the most brash, loudmouth internet marketing dudes had to start somewhere. And I guarantee they felt uncomfortable asking for more money than they thought they were worth. Right at the beginning.
What did you do about it?
Honestly, practice. And this is kind of... There's nothing wrong with the discomfort, but letting it limit your earning potential is a problem. And so that was one of the first things. If
you find yourself thinking, I can't possibly charge that, or this is way too expensive.
Yeah. One of the first things that I did. Well, actually, there's a couple of problems. It says, are you actually confident in what you're selling? And if you are, then it's a self-confidence problem. If you're not, and you genuinely don't think your product is worth what you are selling it for, then you got other issues, frankly. But you can build more value into it. You can make it better. You can do this, that, and the other. But I'm assuming that you've got a product that is, or a service that is really, really valuable to people. So one of the first things that I did, one of the first investments I ever made in myself and my business was at Andy Maslin's excellent freelancer workshop.
Hi, Andy.
He does not listen. This is years ago now. Andy is one of the UK's top copywriters, and he does all kinds of teachings and things. But I found I'd been following him because I was learning to do copywriting. This is years and years ago, and I went to his freelancer workshop, and it was great because it just shifted my perception on, money and wealth and what we can ask for, and that don't look around at what other people are doing. Don't be like, oh, copywriters charge between X and Y for this. It's like, that's nonsense. You charge what you want according to the value that you bring. But one of a couple of the things that I took away and I've kept kind of close to me is practice asking for money in front of the mirror until you can do it without getting that silly grin on your face that you get when you're like, oh, I can't possibly charge that. And it sounds silly, but do it. Do it until you can say it with a straight face.
Just that's what it costs.
And without a wobble in your voice, yeah. Because when you think about how you buy stuff from other people in shops and things, most people don't kind of go, "Ooh, well, it's going to be, £35. Is that okay?" It's like, they'll be like, "No, that thing is £200." And you don't question it. It's like, okay, that's how much it costs. So why do you have so much trouble saying,
it costs £200.
It costs £200 or it costs £1,500 or whatever. It's all in your head. The other thing that I took away from Andy's workshop was the bubble theory.
Okay.
Do you want to know what the bubble theory is?
Tell me the bubble theory.
Okay. So, you never know where the edge of the pricing bubble is.
What's the pricing bubble?
The pricing bubble is basically how much you can charge before people will stop paying it.
Okay.
You don't know where that is because it's invisible. Nobody has a sign on their head that says, I will pay a maximum of, it's not like eBay where it's like, this is my maximum bid. And that's like tattooed into their forehead. You don't know how much people are willing to pay for something. You just have to keep pushing until you find the edge of it. Which is why you put your prices up and you put your prices up and you put your prices up. And when people stop buying and start going, actually, no, that's just taking the piss, or that's just, that's too much, then you ramp it back a little bit. But you don't know until you find it where the limit is for people. And it's different for different people as well. Which leads me neatly on to, you are not a mind reader. Because the number of times I have heard people say, business owners say, my clients won't pay that much. Really? How do you know that? You don't know that. You don't know that. That is your own self-limiting beliefs telling you, I can't possibly charge that, and coming out of your mouth as, my clients won't pay that. Because that is your way of justifying to yourself that you can't charge that much money.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's it, really.
Is it? So are people who are saying that just, you think that's just them limiting their own behaviour? You don't think that's, I guess it's not the case that these people have experimented and found the edge of their bubble?
Most of them haven't. I know they haven't. Because, I've asked them about it. And they tend to be newer business owners. People who've been in business a little bit longer. Actually, this is not true of everybody. But successful business owners will have done. They will have found what the market will bear. But even if you've got a product that you think is a commodity, I can't charge more than... conventional wisdom would say nobody will pay more than £9.99 for a book because that's how much they cost in shops. Really? I've sold quite a lot of my books at £19.95. It's a book. It's a paperback. There is nothing. There are no rules that say you cannot charge more than X, Y, Z. And if you really believe, if you've pushed and you've found the edge and people have said, no, this is it, this far, no further.
This really is the ceiling.
This really is the ceiling. Then change what you're offering. Add something to it, add value to it, change it up, do something slightly different, because that opens it. This is why I'm so shit hot on getting people to stand out and do things differently, the Flamingo Your Business thing. Because the second you have something that is different from everybody else's, you can't possibly be compared on anything, including price. And then you can charge whatever you want. And again, I'm not telling you to price gouge people at all. I'm telling you to give maximum value all the time and do an amazing job of what you do. And if people are happy with what they've paid, that's a good thing. You've done something good for them. And it doesn't matter if they paid 10 grand for it or £1,000 for it or £10 for it. I've bought plenty of stuff for a tenner that I've regretted. I haven't bought many things for a large amount of money from people that I trust that I have regretted. Because,
because you think about it more.
Because you think about it more and you've got that relationship with them and there's that trust. So that's something to think about as well. But I also wanted to kind of, with this mind reading thing, this is one of the questions that I got from one of my superheroes. So she had said, and she's a copywriter as well, in the past, I haven't asked my clients for a deposit. I've just invoiced them when the work is complete. But I'm wanting to, I'm working on bigger projects and charging more now because we've been working on that. I want to charge a deposit. It seems to make sense to charge a deposit, but I struggle with asking for money before delivering anything. And she was asking advice. What percentage do you charge? When do you raise the subject of a deposit? Has anyone else experienced negative feedback from clients after asking for a deposit? So I thought that we would just tackle this question for the last few minutes of the podcast because
it's a specific thing.
Because it's a specific thing, and it applies to any creative kind of work, really. So writers, designers, web designers, that kind of thing. Before I answer the question, I just wanted to put a side note for people, particularly for people who are providing that kind of service. Always ask for a deposit or money up front. Always, always, always. For a variety of very good reasons. Joe, what's the first reason?
To save you wasting your time on tyre kickers.
It's not the most important reason, but
No?
okay. It's to protect you.
Oh, right. So you do the work and they just don't pay you and you've wasted all that time and not got any money.
Yeah. And one of my rules of thumb has always been, and I cannot remember which of my mentors or teachers told me this, so I apologise in advance. But my deposit is always an amount that I would be happy for or, okay with if that's all I got.
Okay.
So if they stiff me on the second half, then that deposit that I have asked for
Covers your time.
Covers my time at least, yeah. It's probably not going to be very profitable, but it means that I haven't lost out. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So protect you. You have to protect yourself. There are very few people in the world who are total assholes and will screw you out of money.
There's some out there, though.
But there are some out there. I have met one or two of them in my time. The second reason, tyre kickers, to prevent tyre kickers, to show you and the client are serious.
Yes.
If you're a serious business owner, I'm always surprised when I'm buying something big, a big purchase, and people don't ask me for a deposit. I'm surprised. I feel better if people ask me for a deposit.
Because they're actually going to sell it to you. They're actually going to do it. They're going to follow through.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and one of the ways that you can ask for a deposit, and this answers my superheroes question, how do you ask for it? You say, as soon as a deposit hits my bank account, as soon as the funds hit my bank account, you are locked in. I have guaranteed you that time. I have guaranteed you the time I've booked out.
Time is booked. You're there.
And the work will happen. And so that's, it protects both of us, really. Shows the client you're serious, gets rid of tyre kickers, it shows, all of that kind of thing. So the third reason is to flag up any potential issues, because one of the other things that she asked was, has anyone ever experienced negative feedback from clients after asking for a deposit? If you get any negative feedback from them after asking for a deposit, run the other way, because that is it's like they have done you the most massive favour you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, they've said, I don't really want to pay you to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, fine. We're going to talk to someone else.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
If the problem is specifically with the money up front, with the deposit, walk the other way. If they say, oh, I'm not quite sure yet, can you tell me a bit more about this, that and the other, that means you haven't built their trust up yet, and that's a different issue.
Yeah.
So, but, if they're like, no, I'm not paying a deposit, do the work first, run.
Yeah.
Absolutely run, because they are, And if all this feels wrong to you, if this asking for a deposit up front and all the rest of it feels wrong to you, have a look at every other transaction that you do in your life. There are very few things where you don't pay up front for things.
It's true. You buy a flight, you buy a holiday, you book
walk
a hotel.
into a shop. You have a hairdo, you don't pay up front, but you do pay there and then. Although, I wouldn't mind paying in advance for my haircuts, frankly. So yeah, you for a lot of things you pay up front or you pay a deposit. If I was having a lot of work done on my car and they were like, oh, it's going to be in for like a month or so, I would be like, well, I could give you 500 quid at the beginning of the month and pay the balance when I pick it up. Yeah. More people should do that, by the way.
I'll pay for all the parts now.
Yeah.
When you're ordering them, and then I'll pay you for the labour when it's done.
Which is what we've done with our stairs.
Yeah.
Which are not happening yet. That's a different story. So why should you be any different? You have to, and there's going to be a certain amount of upfront work, and why don't work for free?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. So the other question was, how much of a deposit? So I always charge, if it's a massive project, if it's kind of 10 grand plus, I will charge a third upfront, a third kind of halfway through, and the balance on delivery. And that usually works pretty well. So 30, 30, 40. If it is a smaller project than that, I will be 50% upfront, and then the balance on delivery and sign off. If it's an amount under £1,000, it's all upfront, just the whole lot upfront.
Okay.
And that's just the way I work. Everybody is different. So but yeah, you want to get something in there. So it's entirely up to you. Do what you're comfortable with to kind of get used to it. But ask for something that will reasonably cover you if they do then stiff you.
Yeah.
Because that's the point of
Get your own
deposit.
mortgage paid.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when I raise the subject of a deposit, when I'm talking to people, okay, this is how I work. People need to know how you work. Be really upfront about this, because the other thing that we do is, and this is partly down to the attitude to money and, confidence, we shy away from the subject of money. Once you've got somebody to the position where they're really interested in working with you, the next question is going to be, okay, so how much is my investment going to be? And you want them to be talking about it in terms of investment as well, not cost. If they're talking about it in terms of cost, then there's a problem there. So yeah, it's be really upfront. You know what? Yeah, my rates start from XYZ. My rates for a direct mail campaign start from $5,000. What you want might be a bit more because I don't know yet. Deposit will secure my time. We'll get on the phone, blah blah blah. However you work, your consultation, whatever. However you work, but yeah, right up front, right when you're talking to them.
The less ambiguity and confusion and uncertainty there is, the more likely they are to feel comfortable with what actually is going to happen next.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before on the kind of when you're ordering stuff on a website, show them what happens next.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is showing them what will happen next.
Yeah.
Clearly. And
also talking about it up front as well in the initial conversation saves you all the time of producing a really, it's hard work producing a decent action plan, which is basically a sales letter, which is a quote, this is the work we're doing. You don't want to be putting in all that time and energy for somebody who frankly is not interested. So if you give them your prices, I start from whatever, and they're immediately like, I really can't afford that.
Thank you.
You just saved me time. And it's like, doesn't mean they'll never be able to work with you, doesn't mean that you won't be able to work something else out that is within their budget.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's just save you the time and trouble of putting all this stuff together that isn't going to get anywhere. So that's another good reason to do it as well, right up front. But yeah, this superhero who had asked me this original question popped an update in the forum the other day, and she said, because one of the reasons that we don't ask for deposit is, my clients won't like that. Mm-hmm. Superhero update. I had my meeting on Thursday, asked for a deposit, and he didn't flinch. In fact, he paid within a couple of hours of the meeting as he was so keen to get started. You are not a mind reader, listener. You are not a mind reader. You do not know what is in people's heads, so don't assume you do. It's the voices in your head. Another one of my coaching clients, one of my flamingos, put in a massive quote for a massive project. It was enormous. And she said, I've put it together using your action plan template. I'm not confident they'll go for it, but, I'll be interested in their feedback. And, I wasn't sure either, because it was 5 figures.
Right.
And not low 5 figures either. It was big 5 figures. And she got a reply from them that was actually really positive. And they were like, we're going to see if we can make this work. We're going to see how we can do it, because I told her to put I basically gave her a few strategies to, this is how you can make it more palatable and more manageable for everybody. Mm-hmm. And, you split it up and all this.
Stage payments and staging.
Yeah. And they came back with something that was actually, it wasn't basically hell no. Yeah. And her response to me was, wow, it's not impossible. She might have fallen off her chair on receiving my email, but she's being very positive about it all. You do not know how people are going to react, and even if they don't go for my flamingos plan, it's going to have built her confidence, because it wasn't an outright absolutely not.
Yeah, if she made a similar proposal to 5 companies, one of them would go for it. One
of them, yeah, probably would, yeah. And she couldn't go lower either. This is the thing. It's like people are really tempted to go low so that they get the work. But if she had gone low, this project would have crippled her. It would have absolutely crippled her, because it would have been the only thing she could have done for ages, and it would not have been enough money. And so that's another thing to consider. If you're really worried about high prices and putting people off, consider how you will do the work at a lower price, and can you do it? Because I've seen people's reputations ruined from doing that, because they've simply not been able to deliver on what they've promised at the price that they've charged.
Yes, I've seen that too.
And it happens a lot, and it's not malicious. It's just it's fear, and desperation. And the other problem with low prices is you will automatically disqualify high-paying clients, higher quality clients, because I will, if I'm looking for something specific, and I see a price that's too low, I won't even consider it. I'll just skim straight past it. And I know that sounds crazy, But most people are not price buyers for things that they really want and value.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I see a pair of shoes in a shop, a pair of high heel shoes in a shop for £7.50, I'm not going to buy them because they're going to be shit or made by child slaves. Yes. And so, you know, I don't need shoes like that in my life. I want them to not break my ankles and all the rest of it.
Not be made by slaves.
And yeah, also, yeah. Also. So yeah, work on this. Really put work into asking for money with confidence, because if you are asking for money in a kind of, I'm not sure way, your client is not going to have confidence in your ability to do what you're selling. If you ask for the money in, you know, this is how much it is, and you're confident about it, they're like, oh, okay, cool. I know where I stand. And everything is clear and everyone knows what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So get comfortable with money, basically. Immerse yourself in the world of richer people and how they live and behave and talk. Listen to their language around money as well. Listen to the way they talk about money, and then compare it to the way most people talk about money, because you will notice some big differences. And, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, it's an entitlement attitude. And for some people, they do have an entitlement attitude, the rich people. But I've seen far more entitlement attitudes on people without money than I have with money. You know, I'm entitled to concessions for this, that, and the other. It's like, no, go out and earn it. The money is there for the taking, and the rich people know that. So you can kind of hate them, or you can look at them and learn from them. It's kind of your choice, really. I have a couple of bits of homework for people. Read 2 Dan Kennedy books. Dan Kennedy is like the godfather of modern marketing. His No BS Wealth Attraction for Entrepreneurs is a very good book. And his No BS Marketing to the Affluent. Particularly the No BS Marketing to the Affluent, the beginning of that book is a proper eye-opener as to the Western attitude to money and most people's attitude and mindset around money and how screwed up it is and why it keeps us poor.
Cool.
2 really good books to read. So, what's this week's takeaway, Joe?
You're not a mind reader.
Yeah.
Stop undercutting yourself. Don't assume your client won't go for it. It's most likely the nonsense going on in your own head that is sabotaging you.
Exactly.
Just work out what it costs, work out what your profit margin needs to be, put a price on it, and feel comfortable charging that.
Yes. Get comfortable asking for money.
Get real comfortable asking for money. Yeah.
So if you have any questions that you would like us to answer on the Business for Superheroes show, send us an email. podcast@vickyfraser.com.
Oh, that's new.
I think that's the right email address. Or, you know, if you get like a bounce thing, Vicky@vickyfraser.com. We'll do it as well. Pop in the subject line podcast question, and then ask me anything, and we will do our best to answer you.
We shall.
Coming up next week, why your business needs rules. Back to school. Would you like to come to San Diego, Joe?
Yes, I would.
Excellent. First weekend in November?
Okay.
Awesome. So me and Misty are doing Breaking Bread San Diego edition.
Sweet.
The one in Canada went well earlier this year. The one in Yorkshire went really well in May. It was fantastic. Nice. A fantastic long weekend, wasn't it?
It was. Apart from nearly getting killed by cows.
Yeah, and if you come along to Breaking Bread San Diego, we will tell you all about the near-death cow experience. But yeah, if you would like to come to San Diego, spend a long weekend with me and Misty and some amazing business owners who are like-minded and want to grow and, you know, are generally just pretty cool, drop me an email with the subject line San Diego baby and we will send you all the info. Cool. It's happening first weekend of November. I know it's a long way to go, but we're making this affordable for people. Yeah. Because we don't want it to be like a $5,000 thing. This
isn't about pulling lots of money out of people, is it? This is kind of fun and meeting people and learning stuff and making good connections. Yeah, and Misty and I are going to be doing a podcast on this very subject in the next few weeks, so we will tell you all about it in detail then. Cool. But if you want to we're only making 8 spaces available and one of them has already gone. Cool. So if you want one of the 7 remaining spaces, drop me an email and we'll make sure that you're on the VIP list. 34 minutes in. I know. Okay, so if you like this podcast, go to iTunes and subscribe. Please leave us a review. We're up to 21 reviews. I'd love to get to 50. I'd love to get to 50 by Christmas. Okay. That's doable. Leave us a review, please. Or share it. You know, if you know someone who will enjoy it, send them to vickyfraser.com/podcast. Thank you so much, Joe. No worries. We'll be back same time next week. Bye. Bye.
Like what you've just heard? Tell your colleagues. Tell your friends. Send them to www.businessforsuperheroes.com/podcast.